Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Closers. I am your host, David Dodge, joined by my co-host, Don Costa and Gavin Timms. Our third host is actually traveling today, so he won't be making it. But we are here today with a special guest, Bryan Schroeder. And I'm going to do a quick intro for Bryan. Bryan is the man. I love this guy. He is one of my favorite people, and he is an expert, an absolute expert at all things real estate investing. I think, Don, you may be frozen, by the way, buddy.
I can hear you. Yeah, you travel and you have bad internet. Hopefully the sound comes through.
Yeah, it's all good, brother. No problem. So anyway, though, Bryan is an expert at all things real estate. And, I've been doing real estate full time for almost 8 years at this point. And when I first started doing real estate, I found Bryan online, and he had a storefront, and I just drove over to their location and walked in the front door and just said, I'm kind of new at this, but I want to do anything and everything that I can to be a part of, investing in real estate. And I started going to different meetups that Bryan was hosting. And I still attending those. I was at one last week, and I got to see Bryan. But long story short, Bryan is an expert at house flipping. He is an expert at landlording.
Dave Freeze?
He is also an expert at lending now. On top of that, they have
you lost Dave, right, Bryan?
What's wrong, Don? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I saw Bryan moving, but not you, buddy.
Oh, it's probably you. But anyway, I'm really excited to have Bryan on the show today. I'm really, really grateful to have him here. I'm grateful for his time that he's given us. And if anybody that is watching or listening to this while we are doing this live, of course, has questions for Bryan or myself or Don while we're doing this, please don't hesitate. The whole purpose of doing this show live is to include the audience and have the audience interaction. So Bryan, without further ado, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Super good, guys. It's good to see you both. Looks like Don went inside, which is good. But Dave, known you for a long time. Love you, brother. I remember the first time I met you. Like you said, you came into, you're new into the investing field. Came into the office. We sat down and chatted. You said, "Hey, Bryan, can I do something for you? I'll do it for free." And that's a great way to learn from you were just super giving and willing to do anything to get into the business and learn. So I love that about you, Dave.
I really appreciate you, Bryan. Yeah, you have been a mentor of mine, and somebody that I've looked up to since the very beginning. And I remember one of the things that I was so impressed with, and I still am, of course, but when I first met you, again, this is probably about 8 years ago, give or take. You and your wife and your business had basically you had about 150 rental properties. And I was just like, holy cow. At the time, I think I maybe had maybe 8 or 9 or maybe 10, right? And I thought, hey, I was doing pretty good. And then I meet you and you have 150 of them. And I'm like, well, holy cow, I need to 10x what I'm doing. And I'll tell you, Bryan, if I would not have met you at that time in my life, I highly doubt that I would have nearly 90 units today. So I just really, really want to take this opportunity to just thank you for all the motivation that you've given me over the years. And just, you've always been so generous with your time. And I'm just blessed. I'm incredibly blessed to know you and have you as a friend. So again, thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to our conversation. And it's, no matter how many rentals you have, you can always find somebody that's got more, like Tim Bratz or Ken McElroy, there's always somebody that's got more, but you got to find out what's right for you, man, whatever level that is. I was talking to somebody about that earlier, about how do you know how many rentals to get, or how big to grow your business? And I think it's just, you got to just follow your inspiration. I didn't know how many rentals I wanted until I got to 150. And then I figured that's enough. And I just decided at that time that was enough for me. And it was just more of an internal feeling than a mathematical number or anything like that. So how big a portfolio are you going to grow, Dave? What's your goal?
It's somewhere between 150 and 200 is kind of where we're at right now. We've pivoted a little bit into doing some other businesses with like renting out cars using Turo.com. And it's been a fun adventure. We're kind of buying cars that we would like to have. And it's working. We're making money doing it. It's got ups and downs, just like any business. We're also, I don't want to say that we're moving away from the single family game, because we'll always probably be in the single family game. It's just easy, and it's a very, very stable game, as but we're also starting to kind of venture into doing more multifamily. And I don't mean like duplexes and quads per se, even though we do own some duplexes and some quads, but we're really starting to look at the 20 to maybe 50 unit area at this point. So we're kind of venturing out into doing other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all really kind of built around two things. It's built around owning assets that cash flow.
Yep.
And number two, it's built around the ability of using the BRRRR method to be able to do this with little to none of our own money. And that's really the beautiful thing about, investing in real estate is that we're able to leverage other people's money, not only just on the back end, but on the front end too. And, we're able to borrow money from private lenders and hard money lenders. In fact, I have a loan out with your business right now.
Yep.
And we're able to borrow that money to go buy these properties. And oftentimes we're able to borrow the rehab, assuming we're able to get a good deal. Obviously, that's very, very important. But we're able to borrow not only the purchase, but we're also able to borrow rehab. And then what we do is we go and we purchase the property, we fix it up, we get it rented out, and then we refinance it. And I know that's been a big part of your business over the years.
Yeah, for sure. When I got in this business, I went full time in this business in November of 2002. So 19-year anniversary this week for me from when I went full time into real estate.
Congrats.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Back when I started, I didn't know what the hell the BRRRR method was, but I was basically doing the BRRRR method because I didn't have a choice. I didn't have enough money to put 20% down. If I did, maybe I'd buy one or two houses, and that was it. So that's the power of the BRRRR method, is that you can build a portfolio using other people's money. And once you get kind of hooked on it, it's kind of funny. I've been doing this 19 years. I still buy houses today. And sometimes still use the BRRRR method even today. Even though I got money and I lend it out to other people, I still, when I buy a house, I kind of feel like doing the BRRRR method, using none of my own money when I buy it. So it's kind of funny how that works.
Man, isn't that funny? So I had a guy ask me the other day, he said, Dave, at this point, you're probably able to buy some of these properties with your own money. Yeah. And I said, I am, but I really don't like using my own money because I often get lazy, right? And if I have a private lender or a hard money lender that I know that I'm paying interest to, and, the interest isn't necessarily, extremely low. It's not extremely high, but it's much, much higher than a bank would charge me. Yeah. It motivates me to want to work hard and get the project done in a timely manner. So I love that you say that, Bryan, because, and it's just kind of fun knowing that you can get in and out of rental properties or projects per se, and not have, any of your own money, or in some cases, very, very little amount of money that's been invested. So, man, I absolutely love that. So, Bryan, when you first started, and again, when I met you, you had about 150, maybe even a couple more at that point. But I'm just kind of curious to hear about your journey. If you don't mind talking a little bit about your journey. You said that this month marks 19 years. Man, that is phenomenal. Congratulations. 19 years not having a boss, being an entrepreneur. That is amazing. So if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about, what brought you into real estate 19 years ago, and what has that journey looked like?
Sure. Happy to do it, and jump in anytime. And if we got any other questions, I love questions because it's a lot more fun to just have a conversation than to just talk at people. So, grew up on a farm in Iowa. I was a wrestler when I was a kid. I wrestled in high school. I went to college because I wanted to keep my wrestling career going. So that's what I did. I went to college. The first day you go to college, or when your first week or whatever, you got to pick a major, So I picked aerospace engineering. It sounded kind of cool, and I was good at math. So that's what I picked. So I got an aerospace engineering degree in college, which brought me to the St. Louis area because I got a job with McDonnell Douglas working on the FA-18 aircraft. It's a fighter aircraft. And I started in 1991 at McDonnell Douglas, which was during the Gulf War, for anybody that remembers that. So we got to see a lot of cool things that our plane was doing over in the Middle East, which was kind of cool. But I found myself, I couldn't sit in a freaking cubicle. And that's what you do as an engineer for the most part, at least in aerospace engineering where I was. So I knew I had to do something because, one of my, I'm going to call it values in life is freedom. I love freedom. And sitting in a freaking cubicle, staring at a computer screen was not freedom for me. So I had to figure out something else to do. And around that time, Carlton Sheets was big on TV. Do you remember Carlton Sheets, or was he before your time, Dave?
So he was a little before my time, Bryan, but I have seen Carlton Sheets late night infomercials.
There you go.
Yeah. So I wasn't, I never purchased them or anything like that, but I have seen those in my lifetime. Let's put it that way.
Well, I saw one of those late night infomercials. Came home from a bar one night late and didn't go to bed, just clicking the channels, saw the Carlton Sheets infomercial. And for whatever reason, it interested me, so I bought it. A little tape set comes in the mail, and I listened to it. It got me started thinking about real estate. I didn't really follow Carlton Sheets' methods, but it's what kind of got me on the path of starting to think about real estate. So while I was still at McDonnell Douglas, I did my first real estate deal. I actually bought a personal residence, but it was a short sale. Quick story. I'll just tell a quick story because it's kind of fun.
Please do.
This is really what got me into the real estate gig. Is I had a friend at McDonnell Douglas that his neighbor was losing his neighbor was losing his house to foreclosure. And prior to the sale, he had somebody from the bank calling him and saying, hey, can you, instead of just going to foreclosure, see if you can find a buyer for your house. So that's kind of what started. It's kind of weird how that happened, but this is a true story for me. This person's lender was Washington Mutual out of California. And this was 1993. But Washington Mutual asked somebody in the foreclosure department asked the borrower to see if you can sell your house instead of just letting it go to foreclosure. So
because it was going to save them some trouble, probably.
Exactly. I just think it's funny that's the way it worked, but it's a true story because I don't think that Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase reaches out to their borrowers and asks them to do that these days.
It's not the same. It's definitely not the same. That's true.
But anyway, so his neighbor, which was my friend at work, told me, he knew that I was kind of thinking about buying a house. So he told me about it. So I went over and visited the dude that night. And the guy's house was it was trashed. I mean, he was kind of a hoarder. He had a whole bunch of pets. He didn't take care of his house, but he was a nice guy. And I don't know if you ever ran across this in your real estate career, Dave, but there's a lot of really nice people that just don't take care of their shit.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There is a lot of people that just don't take care of their shit. And it's just the nature of the business, I guess. Right.
Yeah. This guy was a heck of a nice guy. I really liked him, but his house was a mess and he needed help. So I offered him $50,000. So him and I wrote up a contract for $50,000 for his house that day. he submitted it to the guy at Washington Mutual that was asking him to find a buyer for his house. So that's what started the short sale process. And I didn't know what the hell a short sale was back then. But this is what started the process. So
he owed, for anybody listening, he owed more than Bryan was going to offer. And you and the seller, I would imagine one of you or him submitted that offer to the bank, and the bank said, okay, well, you owe more than this, but we can do what's called a short sale. Am I right, Bryan?
That's totally right. Totally right. And we just kind of, him and I learned the short sale process together. Him as the seller, me as the buyer. And I've used it hundreds of times since then. But so the bank, Washington Mutual, sends out a BPO. It stands for Broker's Price Opinion. It's basically like getting an appraisal on the house. So they send out the BPO. Me and the seller meet the guy at the house. We kind of show him all the, it wasn't difficult to show him all the crap of the house because it was a messed up house. But anyway, I don't know what the value he came up with, but about 2 weeks later, the bank calls me up and says, "Hey, Bryan, I cannot accept your offer for $50,000, but here's what I can do. If you make an offer somewhere between $60,000 and $68,000, I can get that done." So I said, "All right. So are you telling me that if I make I send you a contract or I revise the contract to $68,000, you'll take it?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you also telling me if I revise the contract to $60,000, you'll take it?" He said, "Yes." So we wrote a contract at $60,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, why would you pay the $8 extra if you don't have to? I love it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way short sales were back in the day. They're obviously not that way anymore. But
and that was probably a pretty quick process, right?
It was. From the beginning to when I closed was like 30, 35 days. It went super quick.
Cow. Nowadays, it could take anywhere from 3 months to 2 years in some cases.
Yep.
So 30 to 40 days is extremely fast. So, Bryan, did you have the $60,000 to go pay cash for this property?
No, I didn't, but I did. I was at the time I was kind of looking for a house, so I was pre-approved with a lender, and it was just a conventional loan. This was my first deal. It was my personal house, so I just got a 10% down conventional loan, and believe it or not, I was able to close on that house. I closed on it. I moved into it. I fixed it up while I lived in it. And then I put it up for sale, and I bought it. Like I said, I bought it for $60,000. I put $17,000 of my own money into it, and I put a lot of sweat equity into it. And then I sold it for $117,000. So that's what was my introduction to real estate, and that's what kind of got me hooked on it. So
holy cow! I want to break this down for a second. So
Okay.
when you bought it, let's say you're making this offer and you're negotiating with the bank, was that the goal, was to move into it and fix it up?
Yeah, that was the goal, because I was, like I said, I was more just a person looking to buy a house to live in at the time than it was for me to figure out how to make a living in this business. So it was kind of my introduction into real estate investing, but it was through buying my own personal property.
Wow, what an awesome story. So you bought it. You put down 10%, which is roughly about $6,000, maybe a couple extra for the closing costs and whatnot. Yep. And then you threw in an additional 17, or was that including the 6 to 7 that you had to put down?
No, actually, I don't know if you ever done a 203K loan through the FHA, but that's what it was his FHA 203K loan. So I borrowed the $17,000 through the lender.
How awesome. So you only had 10% down. You got yourself positioned into this deal. And then the lender actually gave you some more money to go fix it up. So you lived in it for a little while. You had mentioned a lot of sweat equity, and you had put that money towards, I'm assuming, some materials and some other things. And how long did you own it / live in it for?
I lived in it right at 2 years. And the reason I did that is because it was my personal residence. And the rules are still the same today, I believe, as they were back then, where as long as you lived in it for at least 2 years and you sold it, you didn't have to pay any capital gains tax or any tax whatsoever. So that's what I did. I lived there right at 2 years, and I sold it, made good money on it. And I actually did that 4 times, where I bought it, moved into it, fixed it up.
Man, I did not know that. That's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, that was
you
kind
made
of,
approximately 50,000 on this one, and all this time, I'm assuming that you were still working at McDonnell Douglas on aircrafts.
yeah, that actually after that deal, I said, hey, the real estate investing is for me. So I didn't know how to make a living as a real estate investor. So I actually became a real estate appraiser. So I was an appraiser from 1994 to 2002. And while I was an appraiser, that was my full-time job. And then I like I said, I did 4 houses where I moved into them and did, as my personal residence. But I bought a couple rentals on the side. But anyway, that was pretty much my career from 1994 to 2002. And then I started our current company called Faster House. We started it in November of 2002. And I'll tell you the story. So I had a buddy, his name's Jim Stiegemeier. Jim and I used to get together for breakfast, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times a year. Just, one of those, he wasn't like one of my best friends, but he was a friend that we got
together. He was an acquaintance that you kept going back to meeting up with. I love it.
Exactly. And Jim was a financial analyst with Payne Weber. I was a real estate appraiser at the time. And but we'd get together and talk real estate because we both did real estate on the side. But that day we went to breakfast, and for whatever reason, that day was one of those days that changes your life. I don't know if you ever had one of those days that just change your life, For whatever reason, at breakfast that day, we decided to both quit our full-time jobs and go into real estate full-time.
No way. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So did you guys partner up or no?
Yeah, we did. We partnered up and we had a simple plan. Our plan was, and like I said, we had both done a little bit of real estate. So we weren't like brand new, but we were still relatively new. But our plan was to buy houses, rehab them, and resell them, and to live on that money, and then build a portfolio of rentals using the BRRRR method, although we didn't know what it was called back then, on the side. So if we could buy, trying to remember, I think it was 2 houses a month to flip. No, actually it was just 1. If we could buy 1 house a month to flip and make 20 grand per flip, he could take 10 grand and I can make 10 grand, and we could live on that money. And then any extra houses we got, we would just keep as rentals. So that was our plan. That's how we, that was basically our business plan when we decided to quit our jobs and go full time.
Man, I absolutely love it. So when you started doing that, and this is back in 2002, were you doing any wholesaling at this time, or was it mostly the fix and flips with some rentals on the side?
It was all fix and flips with rentals on the side. I didn't even know what wholesaling was in 2002. I think it was like 2004 or 5 before I really knew what wholesaling was and what it meant. So
holy cow, that's so crazy. So at what point in time did you set the goal to have 100+ rental properties?
Yeah, that didn't happen actually until the downturn. So we started in 2002. We were just buying and flipping houses. We were adding rentals to our portfolio, but honestly, I didn't do a very good job of picking our rental properties. It was kind of like, and Dave, this sounds so dumb when I say it out loud, but it was basically, if we had enough houses, in our pipeline to flip, to live on, whatever the next house was, we'd keep it as a rental.
Yeah, no, that's not dumb at all. I mean, it's not necessarily the strategy that we use, and I'm sure it's not the one that you use today either. But there's a lot of investors out there that they use that strategy.
Yeah,
that's okay. That's okay.
It was pretty much as long as we could buy it, no money down, we would. So we had houses all over the metro area in all price ranges. It was just kind of a mess of a portfolio of rentals. But then the downturn happened in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And during that downturn, we really had to get really focused on what was a good property for us and get rid of, because we had quite a few houses that weren't cash flowing. And during the downturn, it just seemed like everything came out of the woodwork, like maintenance issues would happen, storms would come by and drop trees on our house. So we had to get really focused, when things are going really good, you can have a lot of, you can make a lot of mistakes and be okay. But when it's a downturn, you really got to dial it in. So you, because the mistakes will, pretty much put you out of business. So during that downturn, we got really focused on good cash flow in houses, and we got rid of everything that didn't cash flow. And then we woke up in I say we woke up, but one day, this downturn just kind of came about. And when you're right in the middle of it, you kind of just figuring it out every day, figuring out how to stay in business, how to make money, that type of thing.
Man, I got to interrupt just for a second. I'm still trying to figure stuff out sometimes. I mean, a lot of people would say, you're an expert. You got 90 rentals. And I think, I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, it's like sometimes, we don't have all the answers. We just kind of got to just go with the flow and figure things out as we go. So guys, if you are listening today, you're watching and listening, it's okay to not have all the answers. I think that's a really good takeaway and a really good lesson.
Yeah.
For anybody that's listening is, there's a real thing called analysis paralysis, where we feel like we need to know more information, or we have all this information and then we don't know what to do with it. Right. And really just taking action, taking action is the main thing. So Bryan, please continue. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
That's all right. So you asked me when we decided how many houses to get.
Yeah. What time? So did that happen? That probably happened between 08 and 2010, not 11,
Yep.
12?
That's exactly right. It was about in that 2010, 11 time frame. I had been buying houses, and for the local people here, I kind of dialed into where I really like to have houses in like Florissant, Hazelwood, St. Anne, Overland. It's just a really good, I'm going to call it B-type neighborhoods.
Yep.
And during the downturn, they just got hit really hard. A typical house in Florissant prior to the downturn that we were buying was worth about 140 grand. And those things ended up being worth you could pick them up for like 60 and 70 grand.
Isn't that wild? It was like less than half.
It was. But the other thing that happened is the rents didn't change. They rented for like $1,200 before the downturn, and they rented at $1,200 after the downturn. So we just saw a real opportunity there. So I think give or take around 2010, we probably had about 40 rentals, but we went from 40 to 150 in about a 5-year period there. Like 2010 to like 2015, we really ramped it up. And, looking back on it now, you can go back and say, holy shit, I really knew what the hell I was doing, but I didn't. It was one of those gut things. But those houses have more than doubled since then. So they're truly what have created the wealth that I have today was buying those houses during 2010 to 2015 timeframe. And it's not because I was super smart. It's kind of, I got a little bit lucky. I took action, obviously.
You took action, though. That's the main thing.
That's right. We did take action. We took freaking massive action. We bought like about 100 houses in like a 5-year period of time there. And from 2010 to 2015.
Man, that is amazing. And I would imagine I probably met you sometime in, it probably was around 2015, maybe even 14, somewhere in that range. And at that time when I met you, you had right at about 150 of them.
Yeah.
And man, it's just, I'm telling you, Bryan, you impress, and you still do. This wasn't a then, this is a current thing too, but you impressed me so much that I was like, you know what? I need to really just focus on this because, I didn't even think it was possible that somebody could do that when I first met you. I'm thinking, somebody maybe could get to 20 or maybe to 50, but like 150, holy cow, that is a crazy number. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to meet you. And then I'm learning from you still to this day. So, wow, very cool. Very cool.
Well, for more than anything, and I tell people this a lot, for me, I just do what I enjoy doing. And for whatever reason, I enjoyed buying houses. I really loved it. And, whether it's buying houses on a short sale, and I truly felt that I helped out this gentleman that needed help getting his house sold. And I prevented him from having a foreclosure on his record to during the downturn. it's Warren Buffett has that quote where you buy when everybody else has got fear in the streets is when you buy, and that's truly what I was doing. My partner Jim and I, what we were doing is we were buying houses that nobody else wanted back then because it was amazing at how cheap they were. But if you lived through that moment, people were scared to buy houses. Truly, they were scared to buy houses because they just kept going down in value. But I really just. I'm kind of I'll share one thing. Whenever we with our rentals, one of the things that my wife and I do on all of our rentals is whenever we are screening for a tenant, the last thing that we do before we allow a tenant to move into one of our houses is either my wife or I will go do a home visit with that tenant at their personal residence. So we've already made sure that they got enough income. We've already done a landlord reference. We've already, run their credit, those type of things. But the last thing we do before we let anybody move into one of our houses is we go visit that tenant at their house. And the reason we do that is, number one, to make sure that if they took care of the house that they'd been living in, they're probably going to take care of our house.
Yep.
But I tell people that a lot, and people think I'm crazy for going and, especially even at this point in my career, just going meeting tenants at their houses. But I truly enjoy doing it. It's like a fun thing for me. I get a kick out of helping somebody move into a house that they're excited about moving into and kind of coaching them on what a good tenant does as far as cleaning the gutters, cutting the grass, cleaning up the fence rows so they don't let all the trees grow up in the fence rows. Actually, just taking care of a house. A lot of tenants need somebody to coach them on that, and I really enjoy doing that. So, I think one of the, I guess I'm just kind of rambling on there, but one of the things.
No, this is very valuable because I've heard you say this before. Dustin at the RIA just this last Thursday was saying that was such a valuable thing that he had learned from you, and I'm just curious if you don't mind expanding on that a little bit. You had said that the tenants like to kind of be coached on what makes a good tenant. And I agree 100%. The question that I think I have is, what percentage of people do you go do the home walkthrough and then decide once you've done that it's not going to be a good fit? Is that a pretty low percent?
Yeah, it's super low. There's only been a few. And so I did go to a house one time to do a home visit, and the previous tenant had just had a grease fire in their kitchen, and the kitchen literally had smoke damage in the kitchen. And if you've owned a lot of rentals for a period of time, you will figure out that most fires happen because the tenant does something stupid or the homeowner does something stupid. So
right. That's exactly right.
Anyway, so I turned that lady down, and then I went to another one time where there was kind of a hoarder that had a bunch of cats in the house that wasn't taking care of the cats. So I turned that person down. But what I found is what happens more often is when you tell people as part of your criteria for somebody moving into your house, you're going to do a home visit, they kind of self-select out. They'll come up with a reason why you can't come over, and so they kind of self-select out is for what happens a lot.
And that in itself is very valuable. Let them disqualify themselves, right? Yeah. I love that. And those 2 or 3 people that you had mentioned, and I'm sure there's several more. Yeah. But those are high probability problem tenants. Maybe I'm not wording that the most, the proper way, but you get my point there. Those are the people that are probably going to have the highest likelihood of causing problems, not paying their rent, just being a headache for us landlords. So, man, I really, really like that you guys are doing that. And I'll tell you, I'm not doing that. I have a property manager and he's really, really good, but I don't think he's doing that either. And that's something that I really, really want to, have a conversation with him about to see if either him and his team or even myself and my partner, Mike, could start doing those, because I think that is just a great way to go about screening people. And like you said, it's a great way for people to kind of screen themselves out. If they're not going to let you in, then there's a reason, and they don't qualify then.
Yeah, totally. And I'll tell you a couple other one of the biggest reasons why we do this is one of the biggest costs, or the biggest cost for owning rental properties, is the turnover. When a tenant moves out, how much does it cost you to get that property put back into rental condition for the next tenant? And that hoarder or that kitchen fire that I just talked about, those could be 20 grand turnovers.
It could be $20,000. Wow.
Yeah, we try to keep our turnovers in that $2,000 range. That's what we like our turnovers to be. And if somebody stays in our house for 5 years and we can turn that over for $2 grand, that's a win.
That's a win. Agreed.
Yeah.
That is a win. Holy cow. Well, Bryan, I want to pit gears for a second here. And again, I'm so happy that you're sharing some of this information with us. I know there's a lot of people that are out there listening and watching that, are always picking up some gold nuggets here. We do have a quick question here. Do you need any credit or cash to start the BRRRR method? And the answer to that is you definitely need to have credit, because you need to think with the end in mind, right? The BRRRR method is an acronym, stands for buy, renovate, or rehab. Then you rent it out, and then you refinance, and then you repeat. Well, if you can't refinance, you're going to be stuck. So I always tell people that are interested in the BRRRR method, and I would imagine Bryan will agree with this, but you always want to think with the end in mind. So the first thing I tell anybody that's looking to do BRRRR is go to a bank or a credit union or a long-term lender, however that may look for you. And at the very minimum, just get pre-approved. Because the last thing you want to do is go borrow from a private lender or a hard money lender and then go find a house and rehab that house and get it rented and then get stuck or be stuck. So credit is unfortunately very, very important. And in terms of having cash, that's kind of one of these things where you don't necessarily need to have a lot of cash, but your private and hard money lenders that are going to help position you into these deals are typically want to see that you have some, right? So to answer that, you can't not have any credit and you can't not have any cash. You got to have a little bit of cash and you got to have decent credit. But if you got a little cash and you got decent credit, this is a business that you can use. So Bryan, what did I leave out on that?
I think he nailed it. I don't think I got anything to add. I mean, we have a hard money lending business in our office. We love people that are doing the BRRRR method. Dave, just while I was sitting here, Suzanne texted me and told me that we got $17 million out on the street today. So we just crossed the threshold.
Holy cow, man. That is amazing. Congrats.
Well, thank you. That's roughly, I'm going to say, about 140 loans, give or take. And about half of the people that we lend to are landlords that are doing the BRRRR method, and about half the people that we lend to are rehabbers that are buy house, rehab, and resell it. So we do a lot of loans with people that are doing the BRRRR method, and what our part of the process is to help people finance the purchase and potentially the rehab. But just like what you said, Dave, is what we always require people to do, because we want people to succeed. We want people to have success. Before we'll do a loan with them on the front end, they have to have kind of at least talked to a lender that they have the potential, they're likely going to be able to refinance it out on the backside. So, and any of the, as a hard money lender, we don't care that much about credit, but the bank or the mortgage company that's going to refinance you out on the backside, they care.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You want to set up your clients for success.
Yeah.
And the last thing that you want them to do is to go borrow 100% of the money to purchase and fix it up if there's not going to be an exit for them,
Yep.
So another thing too is I would think that you would want them to have some skin in the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do require that all of our borrowers have at least access to at least 10 grand.
Right.
We don't
just in case that they underestimate the rehab or that the lender's not going to refinance 100% of the money out and they may have to leave some in. It's just it's a nice barrier or cushion, I should say. Cushion's a better word. It's a nice cushion for them to have to mitigate some of the risk whenever they're coming in and they're asking for that loan. I love that.
Yep. Absolutely.
I love that. Absolutely. Well, Bryan, I want to switch gears here for a second. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the failures, if you don't mind, right? And some of the deals that, didn't turn out to be home run deals, right? So, my partner, Mike, and I, we've been partnered up almost since the beginning. I think we both did this business for 6 months to a year on our own before we decided to partner up. And, us personally, we've done about 700 flips, give or take, over the last 8 years. And we've lost money on, I want to say it's 2, but it's possibly that it could have even been 3 deals. And there's a common theme, though. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm also asking, right? I'm curious to hear if yours are similar or not. But the common theme that we've seen with the deals that we've lost money, let's just say it's 3, right? For simple math here. The common theme was really 2 things that were very similar amongst these 3 deals. One, we overestimated the ARV. So it's a really, really good lesson to not be super aggressive, right? Whenever you're estimating the after repair value. For those watching and listening that don't know what ARV is, you don't want to get too aggressive on that. And the second thing that we did, and I think we made this mistake, or both of these mistakes on all 3 of these deals, Bryan, but we also underestimated the cost of the repairs. And what ended up happening is we get into these projects and we have to then go rehab them, and then we go to sell them, and the net amount that we sell it for is just under what we're into it for. So, I'm really blessed to say that I haven't had any deals where I've lost 30 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand or anything substantial. All 3 of these deals, the losses were essentially somewhere around the 5,000 to 10,000 mark. Now, losing money is never fun regardless, right? But if you don't mind, share a little bit about some of the failures and or deals that you've bought that didn't go the way that you wanted and why.
Yeah.
It'd be a really valuable lesson for us all.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Dave, is either overestimating ARVs or underestimating rehabs. I think the bigger one that's happened to me over the years is underestimating the rehabs. And it's happened a couple times where things were just not obvious. One number that I've missed quite a few times over the years is thinking a roof is fine, but it's not, especially if it's got like an architectural shingle. It's really hard to tell.
They are so hard to tell with the architectural. Man.
I look at a roof with an architectural shingle and I think, roof looks good. And then, you find out it's 25 years old and, it's not uncommon, on a decent sized house today, you spend 10 grand on a roof pretty dang quick.
Yes, you can. That's right.
That's an easy number to just overlook. So if you're questioning it at all, and especially if you're new and you're questioning it at all, just see if you can get a roofer out there to jump on it or something. The other thing that's bit me a couple times over the years is a foundation issue behind a finished wall in a basement.
Yeah, and that's a good one that you bring that up, because there's it's very difficult to inspect what you can't see.
Yep.
Holy cow. So is there any sort of tip or trick that you could share that would help mitigate that, or is it just make sure you're buying right to cover any of these unknown costs?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think buying right to make sure you have some kind of miscellaneous or unexpected repair in your budget. Make sure you are throwing something in there, because there's almost always something that comes up. But specifically with the foundation, basement foundation is, really look to see, if even if a basement wall, and quite often it's the front wall of the basement, from what I've seen, is a lot of times the front wall, if that wall is finished, make sure you're really looking hard to see if you're seeing any water damage,
any inconsistencies there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Even if upstairs, make sure you're really paying attention to see if there's any drywall cracking going on or any doors that aren't closing really good.
That's a really good tip right there, because the doors, if they get out of square, they won't close.
Yep.
And that is a really, really good tip right there. I like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one. Then if it's a brick house, which we got a lot of brick houses in the St. Louis area, if there's a foundation issue, a lot of times you'll see that stair stepping in the brick out front, in the mortar or whatever you want to say. So those are just some good things to look for there.
Yeah, I've had a couple issues with termites that I was unaware of.
Yeah.
And we did a flip this is probably 2 years ago at this point, where the sill plate, and for those that don't know what a sill plate is it's basically just a piece of wood that goes between the concrete foundation and the 2x4s that they build the house on. And sometimes that sill plate can get eaten up by termites, or it may have water damage. And it's something that's really, really hard to inspect.
Yeah,
Because you can't really see it all the time. And if the basement's finished, you're definitely not going to be able to see it. So yeah, really, really, really good tips, Bryan. I love that. So guys, do not overestimate your ARV. Very, very important. And when it comes to your rehabs, make sure that you are putting in adequate amount of rehab for the unknowns. Bryan mentioned roofs. We've been burned on roofs in the past. Same with the foundations. I've experienced both of these issues, and those are really, really good things to keep in mind. Dennis Ryan, one of my students, love this guy. He was at the RIA with us this last Thursday as well. I don't know if you know Dennis or not.
I do.
Bryan, great guy. He's got a question here. He says, where are you guys finding most of your BRRRR deals at today? Any certain marketing methods? I'm going to let Bryan answer this one.
I'll talk about several things here. First of all, for what we are doing, we're a bigger company that has probably a bigger marketing budget. So what we're doing may not be the right thing for a newer investor. But what we're doing right now is we're still doing direct mail. We do a lot of direct mail. Direct mail works. You got to send more direct mail these days than you had to 10 years ago, for sure. But direct mail still works. We're actually doing TV these days, and we're also doing a lot of stuff that pushes people to our website, whether that's through Facebook or TV or direct mail. So we get a lot off of our website, but that's what we're doing. But for newer people, I always encourage direct mail is a fantastic way to get started. Bandit signs work for newer people. They're super inexpensive. Just got to be careful where you're putting your signs out and stuff. But bandit signs work, and just sharing with everybody what you do. You can find a lot of deals just by networking.
Your very first deal was a networking deal.
Exactly.
Isn't that wild how that works? If you keep your business a secret,
that's right,
nobody's going to know that you're in that business, right? So it's one of my favorite things to tell, students in general, but especially new students, is do not keep your business a secret. You should be shouting from the rooftops, and that's obviously a metaphor here, guys, but if you got a lot of people out in the street, maybe that's a good thing to do, but you should be shouting from the rooftops, right? That you are in the home buying business. And it doesn't matter if you're a wholesaler or a fix and flipper or a landlord, you have a lot of reach with your network, and then your network has an even bigger reach with their network. And there is a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity by just sharing that you are looking to buy houses. I love that. So Bryan, you mentioned direct mail, you mentioned television, and then you had mentioned, a lot of things with online ads and whatnot to just kind of drive traffic to the website. And all of those are awesome, awesome, awesome approaches. You also mentioned bandit signs. I did a ton of bandit signs when I first got started, because again, and you said it, it's a really, really cost-effective way to essentially shout from the rooftops that you're in the house buying business.
Yep,
sure. I absolutely love that. Dennis, that was a great question. But yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to is just, you don't want to keep your business a secret. I love it.
Even, I mean, we're spending I don't even know right now, $35,000 a month on marketing these days, but we still buy over half of our deals from just networking. We train all of our acquisitions guys to get out there and be networking, shouting from the rooftops what you do, just like what you said. And we talk a lot about what we call connectors. Connectors are people that can connect you to a deal repeatedly. You know, an example of a connector is a real estate agent. You find a good real estate agent that'll put you as their investor to call, you know, whenever they find one of their clients has got a house that needs some work or whatever, to think about you first. So real estate agents are a great connector, but so are like elder law attorneys. I got an elder law attorney that I used to network with a lot 10 years ago that I haven't really, I built a relationship 10 years ago. And now really about the only time we talk is like 3 or 4 times a year when he calls me because he's got a client that needs to sell a house. So that's a great example of a connector that he's going to run across deals regularly because he's got a practice where he does wills and trusts and stuff like that for people. And when his clients pass away, quite often the kids come in and they say, dang, I don't know what I'm going to do with the house. Mom and dad lived there for 40 years and they haven't done a darn thing to it their last 25. And they were kind of, you know, they lived through the Depression. So they were kind of hoarders. The basement's full of crap, you know, and they're kind of complaining to their attorney and their attorney say, hey, I know somebody that can help you out. So build a list of connectors of people that can connect you to a deal.
Man, I love it. Bryan, my first 3 deals came from a connector. Now that I think about it, when I first started, I was doing all the different things, right? I was driving for dollars and I was doing bandit signs and I did a bunch of postcards. I was cold calling. And what I decided to do is, you know, I didn't have a ton of success cold calling for sale by owners or landlords, although I still get deals from doing those efforts today.
Yep.
But at the gate, I was struggling, right? So what did I start doing? I started calling management companies, rental management companies, which is a connector.
Yep.
And the first 3 deals that I did as a wholesaler, which was really what I started doing, came from clients of property managers that had properties that, and we talked about this a minute ago, they were in need of a turnover, but they needed 10 or 20 grand worth of work because of a kitchen fire or a hoarder or somebody that lived there for 5 to 10 years and just didn't take care of the property. And that turnover expense was such a high cost that the investor was like, you know what? I don't even want to mess with this anymore. Let's just see if we can go about selling it. And boom, I walked myself right into having some deals right there. So man, I love that connector. So you just said that about half, is that right?
Over half. Yeah, over half our deals. We're going to buy about 210 deals this year. Probably a little over 100, 110, 112 of them are going to be from connectors or networking of some sort. The other part are going to be from the 30 or 35 grand we spend a month on marketing. So
yeah, that's a good chunk of change, man. But you guys are doing more than just buying rentals. You guys are fixing, flipping, you're buying rentals, you do some wholesaling as well. And are you doing anything creative on the acquisition and or the disposition in terms of seller financing, seller carryback, lease option, sub 2?
We don't do any of that right now, and mostly because I think it's a fabulous way for a smaller investor to do things. But when you're trying to scale something, you got to kind of keep it kind of systemized. And if you got all these unusual situations, it just gets hard to scale. So we don't really do any of that.
Bryan, I love that you say that because I've had that same mindset basically since the beginning. I've done 1 or 2 sub 2s. I've done 1 or 2 owner finance deals. And I just found that, you know, if I want to really grow something, which my landlording portfolio is my number 1 focus right now, that I need to just focus. And if you have all these random things out there, it's just noise and it actually kind of comes to bite you. At least that's what I've found. Now, I'm not necessarily against that stuff for the new guys, but focus, I think, is really the main thing at this point. I absolutely love that. Matt Smith's one of our local or one of our repeat guys. He's probably our biggest fan with Coffee with Closers, so he's giving us a thumbs up here today. Well, Bryan, I really appreciate you coming on. I want to respect your time. We only have about 2 more minutes. What would be one thing, and this is what Matt just said, the one thing, I love it. What would be the one thing that you could tell, you know, the audience, anybody that's watching or listening to this, and it doesn't even have to be today. This could be something that somebody stumbles across in 2 or 3 years from now, right? What would be the one thing that you would tell somebody that would help them achieve success when it comes to real estate?
Well, just keep in mind, and it's a principle that I have, and that is to do what you enjoy. I've known a lot of people in the real estate business over the years that just loved it, had passion for it, really loved the business and helping people, whether those are motivated sellers or renters or whatever. And those guys succeeded and have been able to build big businesses over a long period of time and just had a lot of fun. Then I've also known some other people that were really talented people, but they were just into the real estate business more for the money than enjoying it. And I always tell people life's too freaking short. Do something that you're going to have a lot of fun with and enjoy. And not everybody loves, not everybody gets a kick out of the real estate business. Do what you enjoy, man. Follow your passion. Follow what's fun for you, and just life is much more enjoyable and much more easy. So I got just a saying around here: if it's not fun and entertaining to me, I don't do it.
Man, I love that. I love that because I often find myself doing things that I don't really enjoy doing, and then I realize that it doesn't really align with my focus anyway. So that is actually some incredible advice, guys. Do the things that you enjoy doing. And when it comes to investing, have the goal of helping people and the money will come. Don't have the goal of making a bunch of money because then you're going to kind of lose track of, how we make money in real estate, which is helping people. So I love it. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I am incredibly grateful for your time, and I know that we shared a lot of gold nuggets and a lot of value with our audience. Thanks again. I'm going to go get to work on my apartment building that I have a loan out with you on so I can get you paid back. But again, I just want to say thanks for coming on the show, Bryan. Have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for